Hey guys, what's up? My name is Cesar Escajeda, and again, I'm one of the tutors for the Gear Up program over at Indian Ridge Middle School. Last video you might have seen was my University of Wyoming video, and if you were interested in that, you came to the right place. This video is going to go a little further in depth on a couple of things, specifically the characteristics of the school again, some advantages and disadvantages of attending the University of Wyoming. I'm doing this video to hopefully give you guys a little more perspective for those of you that may or may not be considering a University of Wyoming as an option. So hopefully it helps out a little bit. So here we go. So a bit of recap on the University of Wyoming. The school is located in Laramie, Wyoming, and began back in 1866, older than the state itself. It's a public university, a 4-year program, and has around 12,500 undergraduate students, and the number grows every year. The acceptance rate sits at about 97%, an outstanding number, and the tuition falls at around $6,300 for in-state and $20,000 for out-of-state students yearly. Ethnically, the school is composed of mostly white students with a 76% rate, with the remaining numbers being 7% Hispanic, 4% international, and around 1% each for Native Americans, Asians, and African American students. The gender ratio is closer at 51% female and 49% male, and the student-to-faculty ratio is about 15 students for every professor. Both 100% online and upfront learning is available at Wyoming, as well as transfer programs from the neighboring 2-year schools. They do accept both resident and commuter students. The 6-year graduation rate is about 60.8%, and the top degree offered would be that of business, management, and marketing. It's a solid school with a lot to learn about, so let's start with the advantages. I found that there were a lot of advantages from the University of Wyoming. There's definitely a lot to like. The fact that it is a public university is number one. A lot of people sometimes see that as a drop in the quality of education, being that it's public, but that's not necessarily agreeable. Education is education, and no matter what, it's always going to be a place for you to receive higher learning, and public universities do tend to be cheaper and more inclusive in my experience. Another advantage for Wyoming is the acceptance rate. 97% is an outstandingly high number, and that is really good. Essentially, so long as you apply, have what they are looking for, and submit your stuff, you're in. This also helps receiving financial aid, as the higher your grades and scores are on the SAT or ACT, the better you stand amongst your peers, so the school, since it has a high acceptance rate, will look for that and offer you more. The student-to-faculty ratio is also outstanding. The smaller the ratio, the better chance you have of a hands-on experience with your professors, and that'll help you get to know them, understand the material better, and pass your classes. The 6-year graduation rate is also an advantage because 60.8% is higher than the national average. Also, the fact that there are multiple top degrees offered at the school, not just one, shows that the entire university is great at what it does. The last advantage I will put from my personal view is that of location and scenery. Laramie is an outstandingly beautiful city, and Wyoming as a whole is a wide open state full of amazing things and places to see. If you like nature or just like feeling small in a place that's big, it's an awesome place to be. Not everything is good, however, and I am going to touch up on that next. So there are indeed some disadvantages that I've noticed. The first and foremost for me was cost. Being that we're from El Paso, Texas, we're not from Wyoming, and that qualifies us as out-of-state tuition rates. Case in point here, that is a little higher. So for example, you're paying $6,300 a year for in-state and $20,000 a year for out-of-state. And after 4 years, that's already $80,000 that you'd pay, and that's pretty high. Again, this all depends on your financial situation. If you receive aid or scholarships, that'll help. And if it's really the school you want to go to, then you'll find a way. But there are definitely more affordable options out there. And trust me from experience, you don't want your student loan debt that high. The next disadvantage is that of diversity, specifically ethnically. It's just not the most diverse school out there. And there's nothing really truly wrong with that. But at the same time, diversity, the higher it is, the better. And that's always a plus. And that just isn't necessarily the case here. Lastly, whereas location is a plus, it's also a minus here. As much as I loved Laramie when I visited, some of you out there might not. It's not a big town. It is smaller than El Paso for sure. And it doesn't offer much in terms of city entertainment or things to do if you're not the nature type. And that's something to consider, especially when sometimes all you need is a break from schoolwork. It's also pretty far from home, 3 states away, which is something to think about if you ever need help or are the type to get homesick. So overall, there is a lot to like about the University of Wyoming. There's also a lot to dislike, but it all comes down to your views on it. If it's a school you're considering and you're on the fence about it, do some research, weigh the pros and cons, and think about it. At the end of the day, you're going to want to pick the school that you will be most happy at. The beauty about all of this is that you have time to think and decide, and make the most of it. Again, if any of you have any questions, feel free to always ask me or anyone else in the Gear program. And until then, take care.